Hello, class. Now we're going to the next chapter is chapter 9, dealing with older adults. Now, now we start talking about certain health-related issues or challenges that face people as they age. And most of the time, people who have really practiced healthy lifestyle when they were young adults to adults, most of the time will have a better time with older adults when it comes to their age, especially when it comes to dealing with chronic diseases. People who have been proactive, gone to the doctor for checkups. People have taken time trying to study their family history, know what are some of the diseases that are common within the family, and have done all that they can, learn all they can, and do what they can to avoid experiencing health challenges as older adults. Not smoked, not drank excessively, not taking unnecessary drugs, not eating too much, avoiding the too much excessive use of the salt, sugar, and fat. Those things usually don't help. When you eat too much salt, you eat too much sugar, and you eat too much fat. Most of the time, that does not help with your health overall profile as you become older adults. And I've also tried to monitor your weight. So let's see what are some of the things that we have to be aware of as we age or as people age. Now, it said, after studying this chapter, you will be able to identify the characteristics of an aging population. Define the following groups: old, young old, middle old, and old old. See, again, it's we're trying to trying to be more specific. You have old, you have young old, middle old, and old old. Refutes several commonly held myths about the older adult population. Now, here again, it all depends on what older adults are you talking about? Because again, with as with anything in this country, everything is divided into, say, the haves and the have not. First of all, let's say we start with race. Race, what race you belong to, most of the time will predispose whether you have or you have not, even though it doesn't mean that, okay, some other people in underserved populations do not have. You have some Black minorities or Hispanics who have means. but compared to their population as a fraction as compared to the white population. So those are things that we have to bear in, take into consideration. Where people live will also determine your quality of life, what sort of health insurance they have, or the jobs they had or are still working if they want to. All of these are things that contribute. Describe the factors that affect the size and age of a population. But most of the time, the size and age of a population, most of the time, it depends on if your infant mortality rate is good or it's very, very low. It's very possible that you have a good adult age and that's a big difference. But if your infant mortality rate is not that good, most of the time your adult population is not as good. Because even some of those diseases that becomes problematic as we age, we are almost predetermined at our early age. Environment people lived in will predetermine some of the possible chronic conditions that they will have as they age. Now, you always talk about what sorts of, you talk, this is one thing I want you to really take time to understand. The social factors, social determinants of health, very, very important. The poorer it is, the poorer all possible health indicators along the line. The better the social determinants are, the better it is of one's health all along the line till death. So take time, If there are moments wherein you're really trying to explain why is it that, okay, blacks are, overall, their health profile is not as good as that of whites or Hispanics or other minority groups. Go over the health determinants, the social health determinants. And they in part will try to give you some possible answers as to why things do not just normally happen. It's not because, okay, everything being normal, blacks are prone to be ill, be sick, be obese, be having and mental issues, and all those other. Most of the time, those are all social constructs. A good factor is social construct. See, when especially right now, we are dealing with this coronavirus. We don't know when the whole thing is done, how many people will really be emotionally, mentally, and emotionally disturbed because they've lost loved ones, they've lost their jobs, and cannot find good jobs, and still continue to face all those racial issues, racism, still continue to deal with some of these issues dealing with the legal force, with the police. So trust me, there will be down the road, this is going to be an issue. We might be able to get the coronavirus under control, but the damage, the health damage that it has caused will live with us for quite a time, for quite a long time. Define fertility and mortality rate and explain how they affect life expectancy. Again, the more kids you born, the less the mortality rate, the higher the expectancy rate, life expectancy. By times you can have born and give birth to more kids, but have a high mortality rate, that can contribute to low birth expectancy. So again, these are all some of the social determinants that contribute to this sort of situations. Explain the difference between dependency, and labor force ratio. So one thing that they again is a kind of moving. Now, most people are the workforce, but after some time, those people retire and die off. If you don't have enough people to replace them, then that labor force and dependency, the ratio will be kind of compromised. And through the years, there has been a lot of complete decrease in the birth rate among whites, especially. So within that population, with time, there is going to be an imbalance between when most people retire and there are not enough to join the workforce to take care of them, to provide some of those social services, pay taxes that will help take care of them. Thank God, because of the immigration force and the immigration, more people are coming in, join the labor force. They contribute. The European countries are also facing the same challenges. So that's not always when people talk about immigration, or people are coming to take this, do this, do this. They also come and provide service. Describe older adults with regards to marital status, living arrangement, racial and ethnic background, education, economic status, and geographic locations. Describe the effect of chronic conditions and physical impairment on older adults. Explain how health behaviors can improve the quality of later life. Briefly outline older abuse and neglect in the United States. The 6 instrumental needs of older adults. Explain the role of caregivers with older adults in the United States. Describe different housing options available to older adults. Briefly summarize the Older American Act of 1965. List the commonly provided services for older adults in most communities, and explain differences between respite care and adult day care. Now, here are some of these definitions. The number of adults and their proportion in the total population increased significantly in the 20th century and early 21st century. So because again, one of the reasons that has contributed, there has been a lot of better preventive means, vaccinations, public health activity programs that have increased the prevention and have also the care, the medication. Certain conditions that were terminal now become chronic because of better intervention, better medication, better science, better housing conditions. People have known better, good diet. See, the good conditions, better immunization, better public health conditions, preventive means. There are laws about smoking, about driving drunk, and so all of those things have contributed to increase the population, because there has been a decrease in the number of dying from infectious diseases. And even those chronic conditions, some of them can be managed better now. So therefore, people have the opportunity to live much longer. So they represent about 13.1% of the population, which means 1 in every 8 American is either a young old, which is 65 to 74. It's some of this nomenclature, so some of this naming is kind of funny. It's a young old, 65 to 74. You have middle old, 75 to 84. Then old, 85 plus to wherever. See, so most of these things are because of improved healthcare services, improved nutrition, improved prevention, primary preventions, and improved knowledge. People are also taking advantage of improving their health depending on where they live, living conditions. But again, some of this data can be broken down. When you break this down to ethnic groups, things don't look so good. Now there's this Asian myth, the ageism, prejudice and discrimination against older adults. Most of the time, it's really not. It depends. Again, it all depends. Prejudice for some groups is common. Discrimination is common. You don't need to be old. But for some groups, well, okay, if you think of look at the Senate, a good number of them are in either the middle older, and some uh, middle old, or old, or young old. So it all depends. It could be a myth, but some of those become more of a reality when you're dealing with underserved, known underserved populations. Their challenges become worse. If there was prejudice against them when they were young, it becomes worse. Or discrimination, it becomes worse the older they get. Common myth, not accurate representation of older adults. Reality, majority of older adults today are active and well. Many still working. As I said, many are strongly engaged in community volunteer and advocacy. So demography of aging, size and growth of the older adult population. Number and proportion of older adults grew significantly. And most of the time, again, because there has been better health services. There are better primary care. There are better policies to deal with health behavior or health lifestyle related issues. So when those things are taken into consideration, that can also help to improve. And people are almost also taking charge of their health. Older adults are exercising and are doing more, eating well, Some staying away from those three culprits: high salt, high fat, high sugar. Older adult population projected to continue growing. The baby boom generation. Now you have people living longer from 85. It's the fastest growing segment of older population, because most of them, they grow health-wise, they're okay, have medical services, excellent. They're exercising. Some of them living in their homes because they have the means to live in their homes, to be taken care of. So conditions overall has improved. Now you see, now you have people living up to 100 plus. Or everything being normal, women live longer than men. You have more widows, women living longer than men. Factors affecting population size and age. The fertility rate. The baby boomers were all those babies born from between the ages of 1946 to 1964. That's when the science really, in terms of penicillin, antibiotics, and all this other technology, the diagnosis of diseases, and all those better housing, better food, all those conditions have, have all contributed immensely to improving the health of individuals in this country. Mortality rate, life expectancy has continued to increase, significant increase in the 20th century. Dependency and labor force ratio. Now, dependency ratio, economically unproductive to economically productive. Now, the dependency ratio is economically unproductive to economically, no, from economically unproductive to economically productive. Again, people when they are not contributing compared to those that are contributing to the economy. And most of the time, those could be age, disabilities, and depending on what sort of productivity are you expecting, what level of education, what quality of service are you expecting from, are you looking for? It's because, again, some of these are some of the things that when you look at productivity, at what age are people most productive? Most of the time, everything being normal, people are much more productive in their adult age. And The challenge now is going to be, as people live longer, are there enough people who can take their places when they retire to help continue the economic services, the social services, and all those services that those older population were producing? Are this now, even though now with technology, some of those services does not need that number of people, but yet still, there is still room for individuals to provide those services. Traditionally defined by age. Okay, this economic dependency ratio, and which is economically unproductive to economically productive. These are usually defined by age. Usually, what age do people say people retire? Usually 65. Some are saying, well, that age needs to be raised to 70. You see, because people are living longer, and because there has to be a feeder system when the older population rotates out of the workforce. The younger population have to come in to take their places and continue. And some of this can be used for social policy decision making. The labor force ratio, number of people actually working and those who are not, independent of their age. See, because there you have also some people who are disabled, or some people who choose because of lack of work cannot work, or because of lack of skills cannot work. And there are a lot of those challenges. The homeless, most of the time, the homeless are generally not because they are old. Some of them either they have mental issues, disabilities, or do not have the appropriate skills that the job market is looking for. So, and that labor force ratio has to be very, very, it has to be proportional, or else it can lead to some economic problems. Ratios of workers to dependent will be lower in the future than today. It's simply because, again, you had a time wherein family members used to have 8, 9 kids, 5. Today you're having 1, 2, 3. And it's going to get to the point wherein as the parent age, there will be less people really taking their places. Thank God for some of this immigration, because if we were just left, this country was just left on its own dealing with some of this, there people will start experiencing some of the challenges of dealing with the older population, trying to take care of the older population. So if you look at this diagram, 2010, you have 45% of dependency, old age, and 22% youth. 2020, little increase, but as you see, there has been a slight increase. So other demographic variables affecting community health programs for older Americans. Marital status, health profile, everything being normal. The marital status of older adults are much more helpful in contributing to their overall health than single. Couples have a better health profile than single. Household, living arrangement, racial and ethnic composition. And the racial and ethnic composition is increasing. And depending on what you're looking at, for some, they see it as a plus. For others, they see it as a minus. But everything being normal, if policymakers really take full advantage of all the able bodies, I think it could be a plus. You have the geographic distributions. Most of the time, most of the population is highly the East Coast, the West Coast, the North, and the West, densely populated, and sparsely populated in between, in the middle. Same with this economic status. Level of education also plays a big part in the quality of life that people experience as they age. Dealing with housing situations. People who have houses are much less likely to deal with having to move to government provided housing. That is usually it provides the minimum. And in most cases, there are a lot of challenges. Great, but for overall good health, I think a lot more could be done for some of those public housings. Marital status. 3/4 of older men are married. Just over half of older women are married. So it goes back to the population. You have more women than men. 3/4 of older men are married. Over half of older women are married. And these statistics even get worse when you think of within minority groups. Older women are 3 times more likely to be widowed. Again, women live longer than men. So they lose their partner within a time period. And being single, everything being normal, is not a good recipe for health. Number of divorced older adults continues to rise. People dealing with so many other issues, poor ways of dealing with social issues, conflict resolutions, money, lack of job, lack of opportunities. So these are new concerns. Lack of retirement benefit, because when people don't have good jobs, or they've never had good jobs, they don't have good retirement benefits or insurance. And usually when the husband dies, depending on whatever job he or she was, some benefits are reduced. And if they don't have other assets, that can lead to some other issues. Living arrangements closely linked to income, to health status, and availability to givers. Over half non-institutionalized older adults live with someone else. Women more likely to live alone. Only 3.4% of older adults live in nursing homes. Three-fourths of nursing homes residents are women because they live longer. And at times they cannot take care of themselves on their own. So they have to go to facilities that can help take care of them, because they've lost the ability to live independently. And that could be a challenge, because some nursing homes are very expensive. And yeah, it can cause a lot of family dynamics or family challenges, because even in today's environment, it's not every family that will be able to take care of their parents. See, everything being normal, that's the best way. The family member stays at home, be taken care of by their son or daughter. But because of the economic challenges and the housing situations, most of those things are just best wishes. More than half of nursing homes residents are 85 and over. Ethnic, racial and ethnic composition. U.S. older population growing more diverse in 2013. Older adults, you have 78.8% are white, 8.6% are African Americans, 7.5% are Hispanic origin, and 3.9% are Asians. But again, these are all snapshots. Say in the coming decades, percentage of white older adults will decline and older American of Hispanic origin will become the largest minority group in the US. You see, and these are all some of the issues when even at times you hear about some of this political uneasiness, when there is this pending dynamic change, then it becomes, well, people become very concerned, which in a way it's a human nature. But for sure, there is going to be a dynamic, political dynamic shift. The population dynamic will shift. Geographic distribution. More than 60% live in 13 states. Now, those states, as you can see, California, Florida, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, North Carolina, New Jersey, Georgia, Virginia, and Arizona. You see, and one thing, if you look at all of those, you see they are all almost at the extremes. So, California, greatest number, Florida, greatest proportion, recent some states age, inward migration. Young people leave, they move from the Farm Belt states. They leave, move to California, move to Florida, move to Texas or some other places. Move from the inward end. Then you have 81% of older adults age 65 plus live in metropolitan areas in large cities. Now I stop here so that the next time we'll continue and see where we go, how the economic status impacts the American population as they age. What are some of these challenges or opportunities that they might face as they age? Because everything being normal, the economy, if their economic conditions were good at young adults, had good work, had good paying jobs, good pensions, and they invested properly and did everything, most of the time their economic status will be okay. But how many people had those opportunities? See, because at times it's easy to think of this idea, okay, people have to raise themselves from their bootstrap. But some people never even have boots. So we will discuss this when we get there at the next lesson. We stop here for today. You take care.